All right, here we go, talking with Dr. Jean Cirillo, who is an attorney and a psychologist in New York City. So we finally had the sentencing through. What do you make of that, first of all, Jean?
Well, I'd say it's too little too late. He should have gotten more, given his history, including documented criminal history, like people getting shot around him, especially in one club. That was years ago, but he should have gotten more, definitely.
There seems to be a feeling that it is a bit lenient. Why do you think that might be?
Well, the celebrity status doesn't hurt, and also they're even talking about approaching Trump for a pardon. He could pardon some of the time as well. The thing is, they overcharged, and he was acquitted on the prostitution and trafficking, which really were not the bad that he did. A lot of the bad that he did was violence, especially toward women, and that was documented, and there should have been more focus on that instead of the interstate, and because he had people over from one state to another. I mean, that was relatively minor. That makes it federal because it's between different states. But at the same time, in one state, he did enough to justify a life sentence if it was somebody common or somebody else, probably.
And do you think that he will actually serve all of this? How does it work in the States? Do you end up serving most of your sentence?
In the state, you can get off with half time or 3/4 for good behavior. With any type of federal conviction, you usually have to do 85%. That's mostly for the white-collar criminals that they felt they were getting off too easy. However, the 85%, part of it can be in what they call a halfway house, or even with work release. So I'm sure he'll probably get something involving community service, supposedly helping people who are beginning careers once again, being around younger people, and doing something to make up for the time. So I don't think he'll be in the jail or the prison for the full time.
So in the end, can you tell us about what he was finally convicted for?
He was convicted for the violence against the one woman where they had the video, so they couldn't ignore that, and the freak-offs. And prostitution was the main thing. That was even more. That accounted for most of the sentence, the prostitution across states. But it was a very small part of things that, considering his history. For a while, I knew him. I used to work doing the evaluations for his reality show, and he seemed to be turning over a new leaf when he had the little girl twins. Sometimes men who are very rough get gentle when they have a daughter because they see what it's like to be a little girl or to have a little girl. But that was a short time, and then he went back to his old ways, which I think he'll do again if and when he's released.
So when you were working with him, what sense did you get of the kind of person he was?
Oh, at that point, I mean, I did get a sense that he was a charming sociopath, but so are a lot of CEOs who never do anything violent. He can charm people, he can drive business deals, and certainly he liked women. He seemed at that point, there was all women on his reality show. I know there was one case where one of them eventually, years later, came out and said that he started making advances at her and she turned him down, and that he made some kind of threat about knowing crack dealers and gang members that could show up at any time, and she felt very intimidated. So again, he was good on the surface, but even there, he couldn't resist his antics.
So you're as a psychologist, then you're reading of his condition. You'd say sociopath, would you?
I would say, look, I haven't treated him, and you can't diagnose anybody that you haven't treated.
No.
But I would say he tends to fall into the category of a sociopath, one who's bright, one who's charming, and one who is obviously rich and successful.
And do you think when we're talking about that kind of person in that sort of situation, does that to them feel like they're doing something wrong?
No, it feels like they're helping in his case, it would probably be something along the line of he's helping these girls, they're willing. You know, the first time, like, let's say if he would meet with a couple when he had his freak-offs with a man and his girl or his wife performing in front of him, he would ask, do you want to see us again? So in his mind, these were all consensual encounters, and even if the people wouldn't have done this on their own, it was something they were willing to do, and that he was the one being used because of his money and his connections.
So how far does this go back when we're talking historically?
Well, historically, I mean, in the 90s, when his career started, in the 90s, when he was with Def Jam, I believe it was, he got into a fight with the guy who was the president of the company, and wound up breaking the guy's arm and hurting him. And then of course he settled. He bought his way out of it. Then he was in a club in New York City with Jennifer Lopez, and somebody got shot, and she claims she was shot in the face, and she claims he's the one who did. So again, he got off on that. He got his manager to take the heat. So which isn't exactly fair. But again, he bought his way out of it. And then after he had the twins in the early 2000s, that's when he seemed to be starting the reality shows and donating. Don't forget, he was given the key to New York City at one point, which was since rescinded since he got in trouble again. But I mean, he appeared to be trying to revamp his image and maybe turn over a new leaf. But he obviously slid backwards again. So
he must have been surrounded by a lot of people who were just not telling on him.
Right. They would, which is not uncommon with a celebrity. They don't always want to speak the truth because then they will be evicted from the inner circle. But at the same time, when they saw violence, some of them came out later after he was already in court, and they testified to what they saw. Some of them didn't, but yeah, at the time, their job was a concern. And sometimes in your own mind, you see something and you say, no, that couldn't be the Diddy I know. Like you deny it yourself because you can't believe it happened. But it happened.
Do you think?
And most of them knew.
Yeah, and were very slow in coming forward. Do you think that the presence of his children, having his children in the courtroom, do you think that might have added to the sort of leniency of the sentence?
Possibly the fact that he has a family, he had his mother there, he had people that are really concerned about him. But I mean, what is the family going to say? They're dependent on him too, His image of a family man can only take him so far.
And where do you think he will end up? What kind of prison do you think he will be in the end?
Well, he's probably going to be in federal prison, and he will be in one of probably the New York, certainly be better circumstances than the Metro prison, which is known for its horrible conditions. Everybody who's been there would not want to revisit. It's no Club Fed, and I think he'll be at a Club Fed, and they'll find something that's altruistic to do in the prison, helping other prisoners or whatever it is. I don't think his circumstances will be that bad in prison.
And is there any coming back from this, yet another revamp, or no way now?
There could be, because his convictions weren't that serious. And then again, if he starts another business venture, he's lost a lot. He's moving to Florida probably because it's hard to enforce a lawsuit in Florida or a judgment. So he's anticipating that. But, certainly I think he'll do something with his businesses and his music. And there are the diehard fans or the people that want to be in his entourage that feel they can benefit that will just turn a blind eye. And so will possible publicists and everything if there's money or fame.
And I'm hearing that he actually thought he was going to get off this and not serve any time either.
Yeah, he might have had wishful thinking. Well, that also, sociopaths tend to always think they have the upper hand, whether they do or not. But he might have sensed that he would get a minimum type sentence. Again, they overcharged with some of the charges, and I don't believe they focused enough on the clear cases of violence.
Thank you very much, Jean.
Thank you for having me.